Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we thank you for joining us today. Today we are remembering New Jersey's Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who passed away on Tuesday. She was 71. Her death came as a surprise to many and is a huge loss in New Jersey politics. Oliver was the state's second lieutenant governor, the first black woman to serve in the position, and the first woman of color elected to statewide office in New Jersey. She was born in Newark and got her start in politics on the Board of Education. She served in the State Assembly from 2004 to 2018, eventually being elected by her peers to serve as the Assembly Speaker from 2010 to 2014. Governor Phil Murphy, who was vacationing in Italy at the time of her death, released a statement. Tammy and I and our children are incredibly saddened and distraught to learn of the passing of our dear friend, colleague, and partner in government, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. As to choosing her as a running mate, Governor Murphy said, "I knew then that her decades of public service made her the ideal partner for me to lead the state of New Jersey. It was the best decision I ever made." Sheila Oliver's family released a statement saying Sheila Y. Oliver leaves behind a legacy of dedication, service, and inspiration. We will remember her commitment to the people of New Jersey and her tireless efforts to uplift the community. Tributes have been pouring in. Former Governor Chris Christie posted a tweet saying, "I will miss Sheila. She served as Speaker in my first term and we treated each other with kindness and respect. We got things done. She was a great person and partner." New Jersey Secretary of State Taisha Way said, "She was more than a trusted colleague to me. Sheila was also a cherished friend, mentor, and role model to me and countless other African American women who have chosen a career in public service." Newark Mayor Roz Baraka says, "Newark is in mourning. We've lost a favorite daughter, cherished and revered. Long before she was Lieutenant Governor, Sheila Oliver mentored so many in our city with wisdom, compassion, intelligence, and a fierce dedication to diversity, equity, equality, and justice." Oliver had been serving as acting governor with Governor Phil Murphy on vacation. The Democratic State Senate President Nick Scutari took over as acting governor when Oliver was rushed to the hospital on Monday. Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman is my first guest. She represents New Jersey's 12th Congressional District and joins me now to talk about the life and sudden passing of the Lieutenant Governor. Congresswoman, it's nice to see you. I'm so sorry under these circumstances. And one of the things I keep seeing on social media and in news articles is the word trailblazer next to the Lieutenant Governor's name. How would you describe her?
Well, minimally a trailblazer, a role model for women in general and Black women in particular, kind, humble servant, someone who really believed in the value of public service, just a decent, authentic, brilliant human being. And I tell you, Laura, this is a big loss for the state of New Jersey. And it's a big personal loss for me because she and I were friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what was your reaction when you heard the news? On Monday, we got some information, limited information, that she was in the hospital. And then Tuesday, a lot of people were checking and double checking, could this be correct? Did she really pass away? Do you care to share any of that?
Yeah. So when she was in the hospital, I immediately went into prayer thinking that whatever this episode is, it's going to pass. And then when I got the news that she had died, I had a really hard time processing it. Because in my mind, the last time I talked to her, she was well, she was strong, she was vibrant. There was always something about her on Facebook. And she looked great in all those pictures. And of course, there are a gazillion pictures of her today and yesterday. And so it was kind of hard to think about her not being there. What does this mean?
Right.
You lost somebody that you care about. You lost somebody that the governor had to rely upon. The state of New Jersey relied upon. She did good work. Yeah. She was just an example of good public service. Yeah. And she was known across the country for the positions that she held, for the personality, for the kind of work that she did, and for her goodness. She was very humble. Yeah. There was nothing braggadioso about her. And she is the kind of person that when she walked into a room, she was a magnet for people. She liked people, and so she did not mind their coming into her space.
Do you care to share how you first met the Lieutenant Governor and what your working relationship was like?
So I met her in 1980 when I was working for the Department of Community Affairs as the assistant commissioner. And she came in, she was working for a nonprofit at the time, and she came in to talk about her program and the kind of services and kind of the needs that she had. And the commissioner was arranged for us to meet at that point. So that's 1980. We got to know each other. We saw each other along the way. So we've had a pretty long relationship. When she came into the assembly, I was the only black woman then in the assembly serving. And so the first thing I do was like, welcome. I'm so glad you're here, my sister. Um, and you know, we may not have worked on specific bills together. We worked on issues together.
Right.
We were aligned in a lot of our core values. And wherever she was, I was supportive. Wherever I was, she was supportive. When she was the Speaker of the House, I tried to be, you know, there for her and have her back. When I went into Congress, she was always encouraging. So we would talk every once in a while, you know, maybe every couple of months, just checking in, see what happens. There's nothing that I ever asked of her that she didn't try to do, and there was nothing that she ever asked of me that I didn't try to do.
Yeah. And what do you think will be her greatest what do you think was her greatest accomplishment in office, and how her legacy is going to be remembered in New Jersey politics?
Standing in very rare space, standing in it boldly and proudly, being someone that you could look up to, recognizing that she had this aura about her that was about good issues, about goodness, and wanting to make life better for those whose lives and issues and concerns were marginalized or forgotten. And it wasn't just housing, it was education. I mean, she was an educator at some point. And it's about just making sure that the next generation had the benefit of what government is supposed to do, and that is to ensure that there is no floor beneath which any family or any child or any elder should have to live in this country and in this state.
This is a huge loss, tremendous shoes to fill. And Congresswoman, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tell us about your relationship with her and what she means to the state of New Jersey. Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time to feed her. She deserves that. God bless.
Senator Anthony Bucco represents the 25th Legislative District in the New Jersey Senate and is the Republican minority leader of his caucus. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. And again, I'm so sorry they're under these circumstances, but I want to get your reaction to the passing of Sheila Oliver. How did you find out the news, and did you have any insight into information that really caught a lot of people off guard?
Well, first, let me say we are all heartbroken. Sheila was a good friend of mine, and we served together in the assembly. She, in fact, was the first speaker when I got to the assembly, and she was a good friend, and she is going to be missed. You know, I got the news from her staff. Her staff gave me a call ahead of time because they knew of our relationship, and they didn't want me to read about it in the paper, and I was thankful for that. You know, I have to say there's a lot of heavy hearts in Trenton and around the state and around the country, I'm sure. I mean, this has made national news.
Well, and this is the thing about New Jersey politics. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, there's a lot more that connects you than separates you. So can you share a little bit about your relationship, your working relationship, how you first got to know her, if you could?
Well, let me tell you, you know, you've read about Trailblazer, you've heard the words kind and professional. I remember the memory that I have that will always be with me was when we were doing Christopher's Law, when that young boy fell off the front of a pontoon boat in Lake Pacon and was killed. And the family came to my late father and I and asked us to do legislation for safety precautions when people rent pontoon boats. And I was having trouble getting it through the assembly, and I got it into committee, and Sheila was on the committee. And the father testified, and I can tell you that as soon as he finished, she pretty much stood up and said, not only are we going to support this bill, she said, but I am going to join as a sponsor. And we got it through the legislature, and it is now law and has probably saved countless tragedies on lakes from people that utilize these pontoon boats and rent them on the weekends. So, that's just that's just one of the minor legacies that she will have.
Yeah,
So
well,
she was definitely a special lady.
right. And what I hear so many people talking about is her time even outside the legislature and that impact that she had on the community that she served. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how important community was and that role as public servant?
Listen, she was passionate. She was passionate about what she did, and you could feel it. A lot of times elected officials, when they're out speaking somewhere, they seem like they're just reading off a script, right? When she delivered a speech, it came from her heart, and that connects with people, and people understand that when they see that you're genuine and that you truly care. And that was her. I mean, she truly cared about her community. She truly cared about setting the right example, and she did every day that she was in that role.
Can you talk about just your relationship in Trenton for people watching and sometimes thinking, well, you're an elected official and and you care about just getting reelected. Can you talk about what people may not see, what goes on behind the scenes in Trenton? I see it as a reporter for my many years of covering it. There are genuine bonds, really good relationships that go past a lot of headlines that we might read about.
Listen, the lieutenant governor and I didn't agree on some things, but I can tell you this: when she walked into the chamber on a day that the governor was going to deliver the budget address or the state of the state, when we saw each other, we both had a big smile on our faces and gave each other a big hug, and that's what it's all about, right? You can disagree in politics and on policy. But when it comes to getting things done and when it comes to relationships between people, that's what's more important, because you'll never get to good policy if you don't have those relationships and are able to talk to folks on both sides of the aisle. And she had that ability. She had that ability to reach across. Now, don't get me wrong. She was tenacious, and she could be tenacious to make sure that she got her point across. And when she was passionate about something, you felt it. But she was also willing to work across the aisle. She recognized the difference between issues, and she was able to navigate through that system.
Senator Anthony Bucco, we thank you so much for taking the time to share your memories, your thoughts, your working relationship with the Lieutenant Governor, and to share that with all of us today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Former Governor Don DeFrancesco has a unique perspective on the nuances of New Jersey's office of governor, having served both as a member of the legislature and Senate president, as well as acting governor. He joins me now to talk about the news that certainly caught a lot of people off guard. Governor, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Good to see you, Laura.
Yeah. Well, as a former acting governor, Senate president, you've got firsthand experience, right? So how do you perceive the impact and significance of the lieutenant governor's role in state governments and this tremendous loss?
Well, it was the lieutenant governor position was created after Governor Cody left office as governor, and I think it's been a positive, certainly positive in a number of ways. Kim Guadagno and Sheila Oliver both have served as cabinet officers in both administrations. They're ambassadors for New Jersey. They both have agendas that of their own that would help New Jerseyans and in different ways. And so I think it's been a positive issue for New Jersey since the creation of the lieutenant governor role. When I was president of the Senate, and of course when Governor Cody was president of the Senate, we were considered lieutenant governors. I mean, lieutenant governor conferences would invite us because there was no lieutenant governor in New Jersey. So quite often when Governor Florio or Governor Whitman left town, I was always acting governor many times. It was an amazing amount of times, whether it be a day or a week or a month. So it's different than it was when I was there, but I think it was very positive, and we've had two very positive individuals in those roles, two women, Sheila, of course, was an assemblywoman. Before that, a freeholder, a member of the school board, great citizen of Essex County, someone who carried herself with grace and very professional and very mannerly, very caring about, every time I saw her and I didn't serve with her, she'd ask about my family and how everything was going and about what I was doing. She was always very positive and very warm and friendly, and I'd say is her biggest asset is her persona.
Right. Well, and again, as you're mentioning, the office of Lieutenant Governor, it did not exist, and it was established to ensure that continuity of leadership and to provide that clear line of succession. So you think that the office of Governor, has that been strengthened as a result of this current structure?
Yes. I mean, it allows, let's take, for example, if we go back in history, Governor Kane. Governor Kane had a Democratic legislature, so a Democratic Senate president. If he wanted to, let's say, run for the U.S. Senate or run for president of the United States, it was a difficult situation because of a party position, he being a Republican and the leader being a Democrat. It kind of restricted him, and he didn't have a lieutenant governor to see over things if he was on the road, as Chris Christie was in New Hampshire quite often when he was governor. So it has changed the impact of the governor's role in that way, in that the governor has someone to rely upon who has run statewide, who knows the issues statewide, who's on the same page with the governor and time again. So if the governor were to leave traditionally for a week, he knows the state's in very good hands with a lieutenant governor of his choice and a lieutenant governor who's on the same page with that person.
Right. Right, and can you also talk a little bit too, for instance, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, she played a really crucial role in certain issues like the state takeover of Atlantic City. So what about the importance of having that dedicated official like the Lieutenant Governor to handle certain very specific, significant matters?
Well, I think it's been a big change compared to when I was in office. I was focused on running the Senate, basically, and whereas Sheila has taken on roles that would impact the entire state of New Jersey, regardless of political affiliation, and taken on those issues that the governor doesn't have time for. The governor is focused on other things. So, like the takeover of Atlantic City, and like a lot of other issues she had in community affairs that she dealt with, that basically was very helpful to the governor himself.
Yeah. Well, Governor DeFrancesco, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and also
Thank
giving
you.
us that perspective from your point of view. Thank you so much.
It's a great loss for New Jersey, but thank you, Laura.
John Wisniewski is a former New Jersey state legislator and Democratic candidate for governor. He's worked alongside Sheila Oliver in the Assembly and joins us now. Assemblyman, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so sorry they are under these circumstances.
Good morning. Glad to be with you. Equally under these sad circumstances. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, you knew her, you worked with her, so do you care to share any memories or just your initial thoughts on the passing of Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver?
Well, I don't think we'll see the likes of a Sheila Oliver in New Jersey politics for a long time. She was a singular political figure. I got to know her serving in the General Assembly when she first joined the Assembly and ultimately rose to the level of Speaker. I was proud to be part of her leadership team, and she also served on the Legislative Reapportionment Commission that I chaired in 2011. And so during that time, I got to know Sheila as a fierce advocate for the people of the state of New Jersey. She had a speaking style that started out in a almost barely audible tone and rose to a crescendo. She was both passionate and poetic in her speaking, and she was equally passionate and poetic in her public policy.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe her legacy in New Jersey politics? We hear a lot about, the impact she had in Newark, where she was born, how she really worked passionately about the issues that mattered most. So what do you think her legacy is?
Well, I think there are some things that are just unmistakable. First, she was the first Black woman to be Speaker of the New Jersey General Assembly. A first that broke a ceiling that no one had expected to be broken at that time. As a woman growing up in the city of Newark, attending Wequahic High School. She learned lessons throughout her life that she employed as a legislator, as a speaker, and then ultimately as a lieutenant governor. She never forgot where she came from, and she never forgot the things that she saw along the way, and understood that fundamentally government exists not only to provide services that no one else could provide, but to provide an opportunity to lift people up where they have no other means of being lifted up.
Do you have any memories or stories that you would like to share about what it was like to work with her, or things that maybe people may not realize that she did behind the scenes when she wasn't
Well,
on the floor as speaker or in the role of lieutenant governor?
her biggest strength was that she was constantly underestimated. When she became Speaker of the General Assembly, let's not forget that she was barely there less than 10 years. And so she was underestimated, and people didn't appreciate the lessons and the skills that she had honed over the years. She was somebody that engaged in constant communication. She understood that in a democracy, in our form of government, making sure that you're reaching out and having conversations, and most importantly, understanding the point of view of those people who perhaps may not be on the same page as you. And so she constantly reached out, and that was one of her strengths. She was funny, she was witty. Every time she would address me on the floor of the assembly, she kept telling people that I reminded her of Abe Lincoln, which I guess is only more so now that I've got a beard. But it goes to show her character and her wit and her charm.
Yeah, I can't unsee that image now of Abe Lincoln. It's good to laugh even in times of sadness. In final thoughts here, is there any one accomplishment or initiative do you think that will most define Sheila Oliver and her tenure as Lieutenant Governor and in New Jersey politics?
Well, as I said, I think her legacy will be as the first Black woman to be Speaker of the General Assembly, as the first Black woman to be Lieutenant Governor, of the lessons that she brought from an urban city like Newark to the State House, and how she cared about women's health care, she cared about children's education, she cared about making sure when people had economic opportunity in the state, and she enacted policies to make that policy law.
Yeah. All right. John Wisniewski, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm so sorry they're under these circumstances, but we really appreciate your stories and your memories that you shared with us today on Sheila
Thank you
Oliver.
very much.
David Wildstein is the editor of the New Jersey Globe, one of the state's go-to sources for politics in the Garden State. David joins me now to talk a little bit about the loss of Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Always happy to.
So many people were really shocked at the news on Tuesday, and of course, when I was gathering information myself, I noticed that you yourself were posting a lot of reactions and tributes from other political figures and community leaders following the news of Sheila Oliver's passing. Do you care to share anything that came across your desk, anything that kind of struck you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has to strike you in New Jersey is how many people loved her from both sides of the aisle. And that, as you know, that doesn't always happen in a tough state like Jersey. But she was respected, she was admired, she was revered, she was feared from time to time. You didn't want to be in Sheila Oliver's crosshairs, because she told it like it is all the time. And if she felt you were wrong, she would call you out on it. And people just respected the authenticity of a leader who had been in government and politics for decades, and she marched to her own drummer, and she did it her own way, and she did it in terms that she was comfortable with all the time, even if it caused her problems here and there. This was her political life, and she stood by it. And I think what you're seeing in hundreds of tributes that are coming out for her are people vocalizing that and giving voice to the fact that they had a lot of respect for her.
And David, you knew Sheila Oliver for 30 years. Are there any memories or stories that kind of are coming to mind as people are reflecting over her passing?
One of the story that I, and it doesn't even go back that far. The story that I have just not been able to get out of my head the last couple of days is I moderated the 2021 lieutenant governor debate between Sheila Oliver and Diane Allen, and these are two women who were friends, different parties. They had different goals in the last election, but they worked on women's issues together in the legislature, and they genuinely liked each other. And when this debate was over and the cameras were off, they stood up and they just, it wasn't planned. The advance people didn't lay this all out. They hugged each other. I mean, that was the greeting. They liked each other, and Laura, you're doing this a long time too. When's the last time you saw a debate over issues and it ends with the two candidates? They liked each other before it started, and they liked each other after it was over. And Diane Allen, in particular, put out a beautiful tribute to her friend and her former opponent.
You can definitely spot when something is not sincere, and that was sincere. David Wildstein, the New Jersey Globe, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you.
Thanks.
And that will do it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Laura Jones. We'll see you back here next time.